All right, it's time for a 53-man cutdown preview because the 53-man cutdown's actually already started. And I know I've been previewing it over much of my work on The Athletic. We have the 53-man cutdown projection. Obviously, we've talked about it in a lot of videos. And the cutdown today, well, it's now a cutdown from 85 to 53 instead of 90 to 53 because the 49ers have already gone through part of this. Nate Brooks, the defensive back, cut. Ladarius Hamilton, defensive end, cut. Breland Speaks, fellow defensive end, cut. Kiava Tizino, linebacker, cut. Spencer Wagee, defensive tackle, college teammate of Trey Lance's, cut. Those 5 players are all waived. So when a player is cut, he is either released if he's a vested veteran or he is waived if he's still on a rookie deal. The difference is if you're waived, the rest of the league is going to have a chance to claim you. The 31 other teams will all have their chance to put in a waiver claim. Then the team that puts in the highest waiver claim, and the order is based on record last year, that team is going to be able to land that player, inherit his contract. If nobody claims that player, his contract is terminated. And if he re-enters the league with another team, he'll have to sign a new deal. So that's the way that it works with veterans. They're just simply released. That contract is terminated. They're free to sign elsewhere on a new deal without having to go through waivers. So all 5 of the players that the 49ers cut today, Brooks, Hamilton, Breland Speaks, Kiava Tizino, and Spencer Wagee, all 5 of those players were waived. Those were all players that we were expecting. So why don't we go through what this looks like right now on the 90-man depth chart to get everybody updated, because I actually haven't had a chance to look at the spreadsheet today. A lot of fun content from San Francisco today. It's up on the page. I know I was swimming. We biked all around the city. Good pizza is up there. I just had Golden Boy pizza for dinner before coming back here to the Mission to record this show. But the 49ers so far, let's go through the 5 cuts and make them happen here on the actual sheet. Nate Brooks first. See, Nate Brooks is over here. You guys see my mouse? I'm circling down on the bottom right. Nate Brooks was way down on depth 4 of defensive backs. I had him at nickel, but he could have played outside as well. So he has been waived. We'll erase Nate Brooks. Ladarius Hamilton, defensive end. Ladarius Hamilton, best remembered as the player who tried to punch Leroy Watson in the face a few days ago. Leroy Watson responded by laughing. It sounded like he was the Joker or something out of Batman. He just started cackling with glee. That was the same day that we saw the fight between Jordan Mason and Diamador Lenore. About 20 or 30 minutes later, we saw Ladarius Hamilton try to hit Leroy Watson in the face, and Watson didn't retaliate. He just laughed. I'm sure Leroy Watson got some points from Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers coaching staff for his self-restraint. Anyway, Ladarius Hamilton waived. Next is Breland Speaks. Breland Speaks showed up and wore number 66, played his first action against the Raiders right in that week 1 of the preseason. He has been waived as well. Spencer Wagee, he has been waived as well. Wagee, the only rookie waived out of this crop. So we're going to delete Spencer Wagee. We can reset the rookie yellow highlight. And finally, Kiava Tizino. So as you noticed, everybody that I just deleted from here has been on the defensive side of the ball, and they were in this final depth 4 column. So that probably doesn't bode well for the players in the depth 4 column on the offensive side of the ball tomorrow, but maybe defensive coaches operate differently than offensive coaches. We'll see. I look at somebody like Anthony Miller. He was doing a lot to try to make the team the other day, to the point where it was hurting the team during the preseason game against the Chargers. You guys see Anthony Miller try to catch a punt at his own 1 and then drop it, pick it up. I don't even know. Maybe he caught it. It was just such a disaster. I don't even remember if he dropped it or if he caught it, but I think he might have caught it and then didn't know where to go, stepped up to the 2 or the 3, then went backwards. It was nearly a safety. It was a huge mess. And what I said when I saw that play, I said, oh, that's a player who has a very limited chance to make the football team. And he was just signed, obviously, a couple days before that game against the Chargers. And he's decided that he's got nothing to lose. That was the, oh, what the heck punt return. Just sit back there at the 1, catch it to the 1, even though all your coaching tells you not to catch it that deep. I mean, if you're inside the 10-yard line, it's a no-no. But Anthony Miller decided with coverage around him to field the punt and start running around. Big no, 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 no. It was not followed by a yes, yes. It was a lot of no's. But if he had nothing to lose, if he was going to get cut anyway, then he might as well have tried to rip off that electric 99-yard punt return. I mean, even if he was going to get cut, Anthony Miller, I think, wanted to put something electric on tape to show teams that, okay, you can sign me. The 49ers cut me. That's why he made that play. And that's why you only see those types of plays, or you hope to see only those types of plays in the preseason. So those are the first 5 cuts. If you have an idea of who the next 5 will be, why don't you put them in the chat section? You can look to cheat. You could look up here. This is our projected 53-man, this whole thing. This is our projected 16-man practice squad. The 49ers might be able to carry an extra player on their 53-man roster if Nick Bosa is not yet at the facility at the time of the cut down. Because right now, Nick Bosa is on the reserve, did not report list. He'll stay on a reserve list, which doesn't count against the 53-man roster if he continues to not report. And I would guess that he'll continue to not report if his contract isn't done. So if that's the case, the 49ers would be able to carry another player on the initial 53, which actually might end up beneficial for them, because then whoever Bosa displaces when he does return would be able to go on IR for a shorter period of time. Anybody that goes on injured reserve now is done for the season. So this is the look at what the 49ers are dealing with at this moment, 8:13 p.m., Sunday, August 27th, with a cut down coming up on Tuesday, August 29th, 1 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to 49ers Q&A. I'm going to keep this as a free-flowing show, so drop in your great questions. We're going to pop open any data, anything that helps us visualize answers that I might have for your questions, and obviously I'm going to have that depth chart and that roster ready for you up on the side. We have a prediction of the 49ers are going to cut Oliver. This is funny. And re-sign Dante Johnson. Dante Johnson never leaves, right? Well, he has left for the first time. Tore his ACL last year. Not sure if he's trying to make a comeback to football after that, on the wrong side of 30. But wouldn't that be something? Cut your big free agent signing, and I guess Isaiah Oliver wasn't a huge signing, but cut your offseason free agent signing in the secondary and bring in Dante Johnson instead. Boom. Of course it's possible that Bosa misses week 1. He's holding out right now. I mean, he held out throughout all of training camp. Training camp is finished. We're 2 weeks away from the season opener. In fact, 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about what happened in 49ers Steelers. Bosa, I think, has a lot of leverage in this situation. It's the same as I've talked about the whole time. Deadline pressure should spur some type of action, but it won't necessarily spur action in exactly the time frame that fans want it to. But, I mean, let's think this through. Nick Bosa is set to make $17.9 million this year. If he doesn't plan to play on that contract, obviously. So if he doesn't show up in week 1, he's going to lose 1/18 of that. So for all intents and purposes, he's set to make $18 million. That's $1 million per week, essentially, that Nick Bosa would be giving up in paychecks if he didn't show up. How long would that be worth it for Nick Bosa? I think it might be worth it for a couple weeks, maybe even a few weeks. On the other end, you would have the 49ers who would have to play without the Defensive Player of the Year. And if that causes them to start losing football games, well, Nick Bosa might get what he's asking for. We don't know exactly what the terms of the contract that are being discussed are right now. We do know some of the general parameters. We do know that Aaron Donald's making $31.7 million a year. We do know that TJ Watt's at $28 million per year. We also know that Chris Jones is holding out from the Kansas City Chiefs. And Chris Jones has said that he's willing to hold out all the way until week 8. So Chris Jones is willing to sacrifice quite a bit of money too on his end. I'm not sure how that might relate to Nick Bosa's thought process right now. But we do need to realize that Chris Jones also has the potential to set the market. He's got 2 Super Bowl rings. He's got a pass rush win rate that has not rivaled Aaron Donald's in most years. Last year, Aaron Donald was MIA. Last year, he was hurt for much of the year. But Chris Jones has been up there in the top 3 amongst defensive tackles with Aaron Donald, also with Javon Hargrave last year, who's now a 49er. So Jones can say, hey, I got 2 Super Bowl rings. I have pass rush win rate numbers that are at least comparable to somebody like Aaron Donald's, not as good, but maybe comparable. I want to be paid at the top of the market or close to it. And any defensive lineman at this point, regardless of if he's a defensive tackle or a defensive end, who flirts with the top of the market can have an effect on Nick Bosa's negotiations. Again, we do not have insight behind closed doors. The 49ers and Brian Arolt, who's Nick Bosa's agent on Madison Avenue in New York City, those are the parties working on this, and they have agreed to keep it quiet. They have agreed not to negotiate through the media. It's kind of the opposite of the Deebo Samuel situation, right? In the Deebo Samuel situation, Tory Dandy had his 3 clients. He had A.J. Brown. He had Deebo Samuel. He had DK Metcalf, and he wasn't shy about letting his clients go out and cause some drama. We'll put it that way. We had nightclub videos of Deebo Samuel. We had a trade request from Deebo Samuel. I mean, nothing has come out to the public in this Nick Bosa situation. The closest that we've had to public news has been Nick Bosa posting an Instagram story from Hudson Yards in New York and everybody freaking out saying, oh, he must be going to visit Brian Arolt, his agent, who's on the other side of Midtown over there at 11 Madison Avenue. But that was a big dud. That was nothing. My favorite part was the people who said, oh, looks like some news is coming soon. Guys, if Nick Bosa, even if he's in New York, to talk to his agent, that's not the best sign for the 49ers. The good sign for the 49ers that this is nearing its conclusion is Bosa in Santa Clara actually signing a contract. If Nick Bosa is in New York talking to his agent, it probably only means that he's digging in a little bit further, right? I mean, he's not going to be signing his contract from New York. Just put it that way. So the 49ers want him on the West Coast right now. He's no longer in New York, I'm guessing. I'm guessing he's working out at the compound in Fort Lauderdale that Joey and Nick work out in during the offseason. Nick now working out there during the season or during training camp while he holds out. But anyway, what we don't know, my main point is we haven't had a glimpse behind closed doors. We don't know what effect Chris Jones's holdout and potential contract has on this. We can speculate that Bosa obviously wants more than TJ Watt at $28 million per year. But where's that Donald money come in at 31.7? That kind of broke the market, especially when a defensive tackle went out and signed that contract. So we're not sure where on that spectrum Brian Arolt is negotiating. And we also don't know what the total guarantees and full guarantees of this contract are going to be. Once the Bosa contract does roll in, I urge everybody, and I have to repeat this every single time because I do these contract analyses every time. And there's a misconception. There's a difference between total guaranteed money, which is money that's guaranteed for injury, and fully guaranteed money, which is guaranteed at signing. This player is getting that no matter what. Guaranteed for skill is what they call it. And the agent's going to put out the fully guaranteed money first. The total guaranteed money first because it's higher than the fully guaranteed money because it's guaranteed for injury. So Brian Arolt's probably going to leak some of those details once this actually does happen. And it's going to be the full total guaranteed money first. We'll find out the fully guaranteed money typically later because it's a lower total and the agent doesn't want that out as much. But it's the fully guaranteed money that they're sitting around arguing about. If this is a guaranteed money argument right now between Nick Bosa, his camp, and the 49ers. And I don't know where it's going to end up. I have projected where it might end up. We can take a look right now. What Nick Bosa's new contract might look like. So this is my projection. I'm thinking 159.08 million to edge out Aaron Donald. in average per year. This would put Bosa, I think, at 31.8, somewhere close to 32 million. I'm thinking minimum base salary here in 2023, combined with a big signing bonus of 40 million that you give Bosa right away. So he'd walk away with 40 million from the negotiation, then he could make 1.8 million this year guaranteed. And then he would get another bonus, an option bonus that's guaranteed of 10 million that would pay out next year, probably at the start of training camp, or you could pay it out in April if Bosa wants it sooner, 2024. So cash flow for the first few months, essentially, of Bosa's contract would be $50 million, according to my proposal. And then, I think that it would have to be maybe even a triple bonus here to stretch this cap out further. Maybe give him another option bonus for 2025, because the big issue with the contract I've designed here for Nick Bosa is that the cap hit goes from 10 million, so it lowers here in 2023, but it shoots up to 36 million in 2024. And as you know, I just wrote this piece today up on The Athletic. As you know, a key detail is that in 2024, the 49ers have way too many cap liabilities. There are 263.5 million of 2023 liabilities, 2024 liabilities, and the cap is only projected to be, optimistically, 256 million. So the 49ers have to cut some fat. Now, this 263 million number, that's before Nick Bosa's deal even falls in. So when I wrote this back in April, I wasn't thinking too much about that yet. I had this double option bonus for Bosa, and I had the cap hit at 36 million. It would be tough for the 49ers to fit a 2024 cap hit of 36 million. So what I think the 49ers might do is give Bosa that double option bonus, like a triple, basically triple bonus structure, to really spread this cap hit out further. The Eagles' contract for Jalen Hurts had that mechanism to really backload the money. And if the 49ers do that, well, yeah, you got to pay Nick Bosa a ton of guaranteed money in big chunks, so Jed York has to be aboard. But if you do that, you take advantage of the salary cap rules that the NFL has set up, and you could keep Nick Bosa's contract and cap hit reasonably low for both years 1 and 2. At some point, that money is going to have to hit the cap, no matter what. Any money that you pay a player has to hit the salary cap. But as you can tell right here, the 49ers would much rather have that money hit the salary cap in 2025, or the majority of it hit in 2025 when they have a lot more room, or 6 or 7, than they would in 2024, which it's set to do if they lower the cap hit in 2023. All right. That's a look at the Bosa situation. So anyway, yes, it is possible that Bosa misses week 1. I know that I went off on a tangent there. We just don't know what the behind the scenes right now are. Get the roster set for Tuesday. Bosa signed and on to Pittsburgh, says Wolf. Less than 2 weeks before game time. Every win counts. Let's go. Wolf 777. They can bring back Taco after depending on what the injury settlement determined. Taco can sign with all 31 teams not named the 49ers right now. They by the way, they released him with the injury settlement. Depending on the language of that settlement, he can return to the 49ers at a certain point of time. I don't know what the settlement said. So this is all CBA money stuff. So I'll check around for you and I'll have an answer at some point. No, I do not think that Ronnie Bell beats out Juwan Jennings for starting slot receiver. I also would say that I don't think that Ronnie Bell and Juwan Jennings are playing the same role for this 49ers offense. Jennings is a mauler, a blocker, he's great on these third downs. Ronnie Bell, with the yards after the catch, what he's done so far, to me, he slots a little bit more into the Deebo Samuel role. I think the 49ers are going to use him as like Deebo. I think they're using him on special plays like Deebo. They're going to hand the ball off to him occasionally. They're going to go short passes to Ronnie Bell, let the yak work. Juwan Jennings more of a route runner. Juwan Jennings is a very, very pure route runner. Kyle Shanahan said that he separates better than anybody else on this 49ers team. This is a team that features Brandon Ayuk, so that's a big deal. But no, yeah, I don't think Ronnie Bell surpasses him. What area code's everybody in? Werewolves of Sanger talking about the 559. Because we got this guy right here talking about Fresno and the 559. Does the equipment manager really make $300,000 a year? That's not bad. No new information on kicker. I'm going to be back at the facility tomorrow, and that's about when the 49ers should have a better gauge on this kicker situation. They were going to let a couple days play out to see where exactly Jake Moody's health is with the quad strain. They were going to wait a couple days to see where exactly Zane Gonzalez's health is with his calf strain, so they can prognosticate who's going to be available for week one. And if it looks like nobody's going to be available for week one, well, then the 49ers could really set the backup plan wheels in motion. The 916, 661, Texas, 915. I love it. I was going to put the 916 up here. This is a common listener or viewer. The 210. 210 LA? Am I dreaming it? No, the 310 is LA. Yeah, 210 is not LA. Where's the 210? 909. People from all over the place. Why are some 49ers content creators so obsessed with the QB controversy? Hello from the 209. Nice. Rodman Sanchez. Okay, to answer your question, why are some content creators so obsessed with the QB controversy? Because most of the content creators were wrong about every single step of the quarterback process. And they built followings on some kind of weird idolatry, some kind of weird worship of Trey Lance. They weren't neutral. They weren't unbiased about the situation. So when your entire following is based on Trey Lance, and then you get emotional on top of that, I think a lot of content creators struggle to keep their emotions out of things. When you get really emotional on top of that, when obviously the Trey Lance situation doesn't go the way that you predicted it to go, then you have to blame somebody. You have to lash out, right? Because it's ego preservation at that point. So you're preserving your ego. You're preserving maybe what you think is your channel's credibility. So then you just lash out at Kyle Shanahan. You find reasons that don't really exist, but you can conjure them up out of thin air, saying that this is Shanahan's fault. This is John Lynch's fault. And you play off the emotions of people. You satisfy your own ego, at least temporarily, and you won't shut up about the 49ers QB controversy, even though there is no actual QB controversy. This is how echo chambers form. When people think that, there is, or they want there to be a substantive conversation about something, even though there's not in real life. And then they start talking with their friends on the internet about it, or to their audiences on the internet about it. And then all of a sudden they think, oh, this must be the truth because this is the only area in which I'm operating. That's how people got the 49ers draft wrong in 2021. That's why people thought they were going to pick Mac Jones when they're going to go Trey Lance. And that's why people are really off the mark right now on a lot of their takes about Trey Lance. People cannot just accept that football happens. It happens. Injuries happen. Bad decisions happen. Stuff is not going to be perfect anywhere. It's not all unicorns, rainbows, roses, all that kind of stuff. It's not. The 49ers will make mistakes. The 49ers will see players suffer injuries. Stuff won't work out. Some players are worse than they were projected to be. Trey Lance, I think, was been worse than he's been projected to be, but he still hasn't had, due to those injuries, a full shot to really develop. Anyway, it's not always going to be off with this guy's head because this bad thing happened. Sometimes it just happens poorly, and you got to move on. You got to move on to fight another day. And so far, the 49ers have moved on well. I mean, they've been so well insulated against a swing and a miss, which the Lance pick, for all effects and purposes, turned out to be. They still have a really strong roster. They've done so much right in the draft that it's definitely outweighed whatever went wrong in this Trey Lance situation. So hopefully that answers your question well. Appreciate you, man. The yak on all 49ers news. So, like, you mean the yak, bro, or the yards after the catch, or does yak stands for something different on a YouTube comment? Appreciate you. We got people wanting to pay Nick Bosa. You know, it'd be fun for Nick Bosa to be back out there for the 49ers so we could start writing about something else. But I'm just here to cover it. I'm just here to tell you that the 49ers have a crowded cap situation right here. By the way, if you want to check this piece out, I'm going to put this link up. This is going to go into the chat section right now. Or it's going to go up as a banner. There you go. And I am going to go to find more questions. Lynch and Shanahan are building a winning team. I don't think it's a controversial comment. They've been doing that every single season here for a while. I think even in 2020, they had a really good roster. 2020 was the year where everybody and their mom got injured, right, in 2020, and they went 6-10. So the 49ers have been good for quite some time, which is not easy to do in the NFL, which is not common in the NFL. And anybody saying that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan need to be fired probably needs their head examined, just because they're not realizing what the standard in the NFL is. The standard is much lower than where the 49ers are right now. Well, Kyle Shanahan said the actual timeline of Hufanga is just a couple days. We don't know how serious this Baker's cyst is. I know that David Chow, was one of those online doctors, said that the Baker's cyst can mean that there's meniscus damage, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's meniscus damage in the knee. It can mean that there is. If there's meniscus damage, well, obviously this is a situation where Hufanga might miss some time. There might be a surgery at some point. But if there's not, if it's just a cyst and he's getting PRP treatment to make sure that knee's ready to go, well, it could be a couple days, like Kyle Shanahan said. We'll get an update moving forward. Solomon Thomas was the number 3 overall pick too. Well, maybe the 49ers shouldn't pick a number 3 anymore. Maybe they need to trade up to number 2. They've done better with number 2 than number 3. Although Nick Bosa is not currently with the team because he's out in Florida and he's still holding out. But anyway, Nick Bosa is great. But yeah, Solomon Thomas, the story of Solomon Thomas was a player who had hit his ceiling in college. Trey Lance hasn't hit his ceiling yet. I would hope not, or I would think not. He's probably still got at least a little bit left in him. But either way, players have windows of opportunity. There's a ticking clock when they arrive in the NFL. And they have probably even smaller windows of opportunity with particular teams. Solomon Thomas's time was up after a while with the 49ers, and Trey Lance's time was up sooner with the 49ers because they found Brock Purdy. Thomas played defensive lines. The 49ers, who use a rotation there, were able to use him even though they had several players better than him. Quarterback's a little bit different. There's less of an opening to play a quarterback. Now, the main thing here is the 49ers still have a deep quarterback room, right? They weren't willing to give that up. But the fact that they signed Brandon Allen this offseason, obviously the fact they signed Sam Darnold, once both of those guys prove that they could be good replacement level players, and Brock Purdy proved that he's back from his injury, once all that happened, once those 3 dominoes fell, Trey Lance was expendable. It's as simple as that. They needed 3 quarterbacks that they're comfortable with to be insulated at the room. Lance was not one of those 3. The floor was still too low. They were able to get a trade return for him. Not really sure they'd be able to get a trade return for anybody else. I don't know. The league might be willing to trade for Darnold. I'm not sure where he stands. Lance is still so much more of an unknown, though, that somebody like Jerry Jones, with a wild hair up his nose, can show up and be like, hey, I want Trey Lance. I'm sending a 4th-round pick. Shoot Trey Lance back over to me, and I'll pick up his salary. That's what Jerry Jones did. Supposedly, he didn't even consult with Mike McCarthy and Dallas's coaching staff because he's Jerry Jones. So Trey Lance can attract that kind of interest from one of the NFL's big personalities in Jerry Jones. Sam Darnold has been around for a little bit longer. Probably not. So Lance was the most tradable commodity in that room. And I talked about quarterbacks being currency, quarterbacks being assets. Well, the 49ers did get paid for shipping Trey Lance away. Jair Brown's not playing nickel. Jair Brown might be a third safety out on the field, and you might confuse that third safety occasionally for a nickel if he's playing closer to the box, but it's not going to be Jair. The nickel situation is going to be Deommodore Lenoir sliding inside with Ambry Thomas or Samuel Womack on the outside, or it's going to be Isaiah Oliver when Demo's still on the outside. It's going to depend on who they're covering. If they're trying to cover a tight end, well, you might see Isaiah Oliver because he's got a bigger body. If they're trying to cover Cooper Kupp, they're trying to cover Tyler Lockett. Well, it's not going to be Isaiah Oliver. It's going to be Deommodore Lenoir in at that nickel spot. Mike said that he sent me something on Facebook. So thanks, Mike. Now you sent it right here. I'm guessing this is what you sent. There have been, okay, let's read this. This is some good research from Mike Crocker. There have been 518 head coaches in the history of the NFL, 489 in the Super Bowl era. Only 36 have won a Super Bowl and 14 have won multiple Super Bowls. That means only 7.2% of coaches have won Super Bowls. It's not easy, Mike says, addressing the Kyle haters. It definitely isn't easy. And, winning a Super Bowl, there's so much luck that goes into winning a Super Bowl. Watching the 49ers of the 80s and 90s, those of you who saw them should teach you this. Those 49ers teams could have won many more Super Bowls, but in 1990, Roger Craig fumbled. In 1992, the 49ers ran into the Cowboys, and there was a holding call, offensive holding on an early touchdown from Steve Young to Jerry Rice that probably changed the course of that game. Later in the 1990s, the 49ers had a great team. In 1998, when they beat the Packers with Terrell Owens, but the very next week, Garrison Hurst broke his ankle on the very first play of the game. That team, I think, could have won the Super Bowl. The point is that just in 10 seconds that I was talking about some of these 49ers teams that were good but didn't win at all, one thing could have gone differently, which didn't have anything to do with how good those teams were. It was just luck. One thing goes differently. If Garrison Hurst doesn't get hurt, if Roger Craig doesn't fumble, if holding isn't called on the Jerry Rice touchdown in 1992, one thing goes differently in all three of those games. The 49ers might have 3 Super Bowls. 3 more than they do. They have 5 right now. They might have 8, right? Then you go to the Harbaugh era, 2012, 2013, 2014. 2011, 2012, and 2013, 1 year earlier. I have always contended that the 49ers were 3 plays away from winning 3 Super Bowls in 3 years under Jim Harbaugh. Kyle Williams, take away one of the fumbles in 2011. Or if you're not going to talk about Kyle Williams, you could talk about the Navarro Bowman, the forward progress play. What was it? Was it Brandon Jacobs or was it Ahmad Bradshaw? Forgot who it was, but it was a bad call, right? 49ers could have kicked the field goal and won the game had that play been adjudicated correctly. 2012, that was the Ravens year. If they handed off to Frank Gore, anything else, the kickoff return for a touchdown if holding had been called early there in that first half. And then 2013, obviously, if Colin Kaepernick, instead of forcing the ball into Michael Crabtree with Richard Sherman tipping it to Malcolm Smith, if Kaepernick just plays the game according to the situation and decides to throw near far side check down to Quentin Patton, and that drive keeps on going, then I think the 49ers beat the Seahawks. Then obviously whoever won that NFC Championship game would have won the Super Bowl. Talked to Richard Sherman about that, and this was years after. And I told Richard, why did Kaepernick force the ball to Michael Crabtree? Why was he testing you in coverage? Because there were like 50 seconds left, right? The 49ers were driving. Even if they scored, even if that play would have worked, the Seahawks would have had a chance to get the ball back and go back the other way on the 49ers. So Russell Wilson would have had a chance in crunch time. If you're the 49ers, the shorter pass that the Seahawks defense was giving them was the right play strategically because it would have taken more time off the clock and it would have potentially put the 49ers in position to score a touchdown near the end of the game when Seattle didn't have a chance to rebut. So the right play from Kaepernick's perspective should have been to throw to Quentin Patton in the flat. It shouldn't have been to force it against Richard Sherman in coverage to Michael Crabtree. So I asked Sherm about this a couple years ago in the 49ers locker room. And before I even finished the question, he said it was arrogance. The 49ers were just arrogant. They wanted to take it to Richard Sherman. So there was hubris involved on the play. There was hubris involved on the play. Obviously Kaepernick and Sherman had the back and forth. And anyway, I know I'm bringing up painful memories, but the 49ers could have had 3 more Super Bowls if 3 plays would have gone differently. I'm not saying they should have won 3 more Super Bowls. I'm saying that's how tiny the margins are in the National Football League. They're absolutely tiny. So if you say the 49ers could have won 3 more Super Bowls in 3 plays in the 80s and 90s, and then 3 more from 2011 to 2013, that's 11 Super Bowls for the 49ers. The point is they didn't win those. And the point also is that the 5 that they did win, they got some breaks to win those 5. So at the end of the day, all you can do as a football coach, all you can do is set your team up in the best possible fashion to have a chance to win it all. And then you have to hope that the chips fall where you need them to fall. There is going to be a degree of luck needed to win a Super Bowl in every single season. There absolutely will be. Even the dominant 49ers, the 89 49ers who were really, really strong, right? Or the 94 49ers who are really strong. Couple injuries to either of those two teams and those seasons go differently. So you got to stay healthy. There's some luck involved there. Then you've got to have the right plays go your way at the right time, especially now in the NFL where the margins are a little bit, where the margins are definitely thinner. And the Garoppolo to Sanders play, to me, that's interesting too. You talk about Kaepernick to Crabtree. There would have been too much time left on the clock for Seattle to try to do something. Obviously, people like the 49ers. Obviously, people like the 49ers defense with Bowman and Willis, but there was no Bowman in that. Yeah, at that point, Bowman was already hurt, right? Yeah, that was after they threw popcorn at Bowman as he was going off the field. So 49ers defense was leaking oil by the end of that game. My point is that if Garoppolo hits Sanders, the Chiefs still have a chance against the 49ers defense that gave up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Chiefs still have a chance to go back the other way. I think there was a regretful play for the 49ers in the 2019 or January 22 or February 2020 Super Bowl. It's the pass interference called against George Kittle at the end of the first half. Because that was Garoppolo's best throw of the game, and it was wiped out, and the 49ers didn't score any points, and that game probably looks a whole lot different. Anyway, you can go forever with this. The point is you got to get there. Build the team to get there, and then hope that you get a certain amount of luck. You need a little bit of it to win a Super Bowl. And sorry, I know a lot of people are going to be offended by that. They're like, no, Kyle Shanahan needs to will the 49ers to a Super Bowl win himself. But that's not how sports work. Every single team is filled with professionals. The other team that you're playing in these top games, the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl, is also really good. They all have the goal of holding that Lombardi trophy at the end. This is high-level stuff. And if one team is lucky and the other team is unlucky in a matchup of 2 high-level competitors, the lucky one's probably going to win. You do need some luck. The Eagles had more luck than the 49ers last year in the NFC Championship game. You saw how that turned out. They stayed healthier. 49ers definitely need the health this season. How would the 49ers get Chris Jones? He's still under contract with the Chiefs. Chris Jones is holding out, but nobody else can get him. Plus, the 49ers have Javon Hargrave. You know what's cool? Let's go back and look at pass rush win rates from last year. We're about to hit 600. I love it. I want to show you something. We're talking about Chris Jones and Javon Hargrave. All right, here we go. Pass rush win rates for defensive tackles. Aaron Donald had topped this list year after year after year. Last year, Aaron Donald finally fell off, some injury issues for him. Chris Jones, head and shoulders above everybody else, 21%. But then it's Malik Collins and Javon Hargrave, 2 and 3. Malik Collins with the Texans, Hargrave with the Eagles, Hargrave now with the 49ers. So Jones, when you look at these numbers, this is why I'm, if I'm the 49ers, I'd be concerned, and the 49ers must know because they're in on these negotiations. But how much is the Chris Jones negotiation with the Chiefs, which is resulting in a really prolonged holdout, how much is that affecting the 49ers negotiation with Nick Bosa? Because, there's a lot of ways we could look at this. But one, here, you have the top edge rusher contracts. Obviously, Bosa's going to want to be at the top of this list. The top defensive end contracts, you have Aaron Donald at $31.7 million. So that's topped everything over here. Donald has set a new market for defensive linemen. If Nick Bosa wants to be above Aaron Darnold, did I say Aaron Darnold? Some people have been calling Sam Darnold Sam Donald, so now I just said Aaron Darnold. No, if Nick Bosa is going to want to be above Aaron Donald, that's great. But where's Chris Jones going to want to be? Because Chris Jones, look at this. Donald wasn't on this list last year. Jones was 4 percentage points better than number 2 in pass rush win rate. Maybe, just maybe, we see Chris Jones go for the Aaron Donald number. And that could be something that really, really throws a wrench into the timing of the Nick Bosa deal, the money in the Nick Bosa deal. There's a lot of fog of war right now. We don't know. Bosa, the 49ers have agreed to keep things in-house. I don't think we know much about what's going on between Chris Jones and the Chiefs. I do know that Jones posted on social media in response to a comment, how long are you willing to hold out? He said week 8. And then the fan responded saying, well, that would be a lot of fines. And Chris Jones responded, I have the money to pay the fines. So Nick Bosa, maybe he has the money to pay the fines too. Maybe he could borrow some from Joey, who's already signed a big contract with the Chargers. We shall see. Derek fears Hargrave getting hurt and turning into a D Ford situation. Well, here's the thing, and anybody can get hurt at any time, and nobody likes injuries, so why don't we all knock on wood? D Ford already had an injury history coming to the 49ers. The Chiefs were having some issues with him. His back had been an issue before. Hargrave has not had an injury history yet. So you got apples and oranges there, I think. But you should always fear injuries in the NFL. It's the National Football League, but you should try to avoid players with injury histories to give yourself the best chance of avoiding injuries on the field. And I think the 49ers did that with Javon Hargrave. Luter's going to be on PUP to begin the season. He's on PUP right now. The smart move by the 49ers, even if he's fully healthy right now, it's not worth it to take him off of PUP because then you'd have to carry him on the 53-man roster, and you don't have a lot of roster room. So what you do is you carry him on PUP. He's going to miss at least 4 weeks of the regular season, but then he can come onto the roster. He could return onto the roster at the start of October? Yeah, 4 weeks into the season, maybe midway through October. Otherwise, he would be ineligible to play for the 49ers this season. Bosa should be salivating to play with Hargrave on the defensive line. And, maybe that's a little bit of leverage in the 49ers direction, right? Nick Bosa had, 18.5 sacks last year. He's got goals. He wants to get to 20. He's a lot of the goals that Nick Bosa has, he just keeps private. They're on his own head. The minute he starts missing games is when a season of milestones goes down the drain. Even if Nick Bosa returns in week 3 or week 4, it's going to be that much harder to reach his sack goals. And this is a prime year for him. He's young. He's fresh. He's ready for big performances. So, it's one of those things where I don't think Nick Bosa wants to miss time. I certainly know the 49ers don't want him to miss time. So that's why deadlines tend to spur action. Again, I've used this analogy so many times, but deadlines and contract discussions are like people playing chicken. You're driving at each other at a high speed. The worst possible outcome is that nobody swerves and you crash. But typically, when you get close enough, both people will swerve, or at least one person will swerve, and you don't crash. And the 49ers are looking for an outcome in which there is no crash here in this Nick Bosa contract negotiation. Yeah, I think that Twitter is where you're going to find out about Bosa's deal first. That's where this kind of stuff. Twitter is the best for breaking news in sports. It's not the best if you want to avoid toxicity of 49ers quarterback discussions, but that's a story for a different day. Why was there no money included for the Trey Lance trade? What do you mean? There was money included. The Cowboys picked up the remainder of Trey Lance's contract. 6.3 million freed up for the 49ers. That's a big win for the 49ers, plus the 4th round draft pick. It is X now. It's called X. Not Twitter. I don't know if Purdy's going to throw 30 touchdowns. You know me. I don't look at the rudimentary stats. I don't look at raw yards, touchdowns. I look more at efficiency. But if he's healthy, 30 touchdowns in 17 games, if he starts every game, yeah, sure. That's less than 2 touchdowns per game. I think Purdy would be able to do that. Purdy's been really damn good in the red zone this offseason and this training camp. Why don't we do that? Why don't we look at some of the numbers from training camp? Give me a second. Do I think Bosa is being a bit selfish? Well, I think we all are selfish in contract negotiations. The word selfish. What exactly does it mean? I guess you're saying it in a negative context, but Bosa is worth a certain amount, and he wants to be paid that amount, and he thinks this is where the line is, and the 49ers have a certain budget, and they want to make sure they stay sustainable. You've seen players take less in the past to help the team, like Tom Brady, but I think in general, it doesn't happen all that much. And one injury can change everything in the modern day NFL. Can end a career. I mean, it's a life-threatening sport at sometimes too. It's one of those things where what these guys are doing is really hard, and they are generating a ton of revenue for the owners in the league. So it's, again, I hate the cliche, it's a business, but it is. And when you're at the peak of your game, kind of like if you're working your office job and you're getting the sales done, you want the most money possible to reflect what you're worth. And the market ultimately will decide what Nick Bosa is worth too. If he asked for $50 million per year, the 49ers would laugh at him. They're not laughing at him. They still haven't given him his contract based on whatever he's asking. But ultimately, the 49ers will decide, okay, we can live without Nick Bosa, or we can't live without Nick Bosa at the price that he's asking. And based on that, I think, the deadline pressure is going to determine when this is signed. I think Purdy will be a captain just because the way that he worked this offseason to come back from the UCL, the elbow injury, so quickly. Just think about that. Training camp started. That was 4.5 months after the surgery. Everybody was talking about 6 months after surgery for Purdy to get back out on the field or, be cleared to practice. 4.5 months he was ready. That speaks to his focus and work ethic, and teammates noticed that kind of stuff. Well, I'm not going to have an assessment of Steve Wilks until the 49ers actually play a regular season game. Too early to know. He's got a scheme against and game plan against opposing offensive coordinators in the regular season. I do know that he's going to blitz a lot, and I do know that he is hands-on in his work with the 49ers cornerbacks. The entire secondary really at practice, but especially the corners. I think the team usually has like 6 captains, right? Maybe 5 or 6. Concerned with blitzes? Yeah, I mean, blitzes are always boom or bust. You bring an extra defender, you bring 2 extra defenders, there's going to be somebody more open on the back end, but that's where the defensive coordinator has to be smart, and that's where he has to have good personnel to blitz. It's a job. We're paid on meritocracy. Best get paid more. Nick Bosa's the best. That title of Defensive Player of the Year made this contract negotiation tougher for the 49ers. But at the end of the day, they enjoyed having the Defensive Player of the Year on their team. They want to continue enjoying having the Defensive Player of the Year on their team. They were going to have to fork over more money than they would have had to fork over had Bosa not won Defensive Player of the Year. It's all about worth at any job, especially in the NFL. No, I don't see Bosa making 35 a year. It's 31.7 is the high water mark with Aaron Donald. So we're talking about 32 max probably for Nick Bosa. What's my projection for the practice squad? Let's get that open up on the screen. P squad right here. 16 guys. Coletto, Winstead, Tay Martin, Willie Snead, Ilm Manning, Nick Sickell, Jason Poe, Braden Willis, Robert Beal Jr., Marcelino McCrary-Ball, Deshaun Jameson, Quantrez Knight, Marlon Davidson, T.Y. McGill, Kalia Davis, Leroy Watson, and if there's no Bosa on the initial 53, maybe Alex Barrett with T.Y. McGill to the 53-man roster instead of the practice squad. 49ers have a whole bunch of possible permutations. So we'll see which one ends up winning out. 17 jersey only gets revealed if the 49ers win the Super Bowl. That is correct from KJ. I'm not surprised at all with how high the 49ers are on Brock Purdy. I mean, he was really damn good last year. It's that he took the world by storm. The entire football world was like, whoa. As a rookie to do what he did, consider this. I mean, he's obviously really accurate. His arm is a lot stronger than people who don't know what they're talking about give him credit for. His average depth of target is higher than Patrick Mahomes. This just gives you an idea of how crazy some of the discourse about Brock Purdy is. His average throw traveled in the air further than Patrick Mahomes last year, and yet there are people that are taking to the internet that haven't watched a second of tape or understood a second of tape in their life and calling Mahomes calling Purdy dink and dunk. Like, okay, let's fake being smart about football here. If you look at what actually happened, if you look at the data, if you look at the tape, Purdy was pushing the ball downfield just fine. And what he was doing is he was operating within the context of the 49ers offense. But more than anything, the guy is confident. He's collected. He sees the field. You watch him play in person, and he distributes the football efficiently. And that's why he was a top 5 efficiency guy as a rookie. He's really impressive. So 49ers saw what he did straight out of bed last year, and they believe in him. For anybody that says that playing quarterback is somehow easy, well, Trey Lance would have worked out for the 49ers if it were easy. It's not. Kyle Shanahan knows it's not easy. That's why he drafted Trey Lance in the first place after investing so much in him. He thought that would be his guy. He was wrong, obviously. Trey Lance is a Cowboy now. But if it were easy, Kyle Shanahan would just be rolling with Nick Mullins year in and year out. He's not. He's having to go for his guy. And nobody has a foolproof formula for identifying quarterback talent at the franchise level. It's a crapshoot. It's an absolute crapshoot. Some quarterbacks are found, like Josh Allen was found, very raw, coming out of college, 50% completion rate, turned into a 70% guy. Some guys, and this is a very small minority, are the surefire prospects like Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. Then you have your Mr. Irrelevance, such as Brock Purdy. Then you have your mid-rounders that come through, such as Kirk Cousins, right? Wasn't he a third rounder back for Washington in the day? So finding a quarterback, especially one with staying power, is not easy. Jimmy Garoppolo was an FCS guy, just like Trey Lance has obviously been more successful than Trey Lance. The Patriots took him in the second round, had him sit behind Tom Brady. There is no one way to skin the cat. There are a lot of different ways to do it. Thanks, Olive Oil. Appreciate you. I'd like to know if you always had the passion to be a journalist. I've always had the passion for the truth, being fair, and I have a passion for football. So I have a passion to promote the sport, if you will. I like to promote competition, promote the sport. So I'm not going to be biased toward a certain team or biased toward a certain player or against a certain player. I just like to see football because I'm sitting here and this is just how I relax. I come home, I do my job, I write, I do all this. I do this for fun. I sit down and I get to talk football and I get to answer questions from people. It's like being at the bar, except I don't have to go to the bar. I could just sit at home and I could work on my on-camera presence too while I do it. So anyway, I've always had a passion. Back when my parents always talk about this. This is a funny story. Back when I was like 4 or 5, they would have trouble getting me to go to bed or getting me to fall asleep because I'd be in bed and they would hear me in my room and I'd be announcing an imaginary baseball game. I'd be announcing a San Francisco Giants game at the time. That's the team I grew up watching. And I would do all 9 innings and I would do commercials. I probably would skip maybe I'd just do one commercial, but I would have the intro and outro to the commercial. And I'd just be sitting there as a 4 or 5-year-old. I'd be announcing this baseball game. So I always wanted to be an announcer. I still do. I still want to do a lot of play-by-play. I started off as the Stanford football student radio announcer. Believe it or not, that's my favorite thing to do is announcing games. Football is better than baseball, in my opinion, for that. I know a lot of play-by-play guys like baseball more, but I prefer football. But I went down the writing path, and that, it was just an opportunity that popped up for me with ESPN and then with The Athletic covering the 49ers. And now here I am. I get to talk a little bit, to talk about my articles. And I am from Visalia, California. That's where I announced all those imaginary Giants games back in the day. I'm not from Tennessee. My wife is from Tennessee, which is a cool place. Well, maybe we need to have it. KJ said the quality of discourse here is elevated from any bar he's frequented. Maybe we can have a meetup at an actual bar somewhere in San Francisco. Everybody can come in before a big game, maybe on a Saturday, and we can bring the quality discourse from the channel to the bar. Mike sent me a video. Oh, John Lynch. All right, hold on. We're going to play a video here in a second. This was Lynch talking about Brock Purdy, but I appreciate you, KJ. 559. All right. Yeah, we'll definitely do something in person at some point. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think that helps remove some of the toxicity of the internet when you're actually willing to meet people in person. I've never had, what's really cool? I've never had anybody say a negative word to me in person. And obviously there are a lot of trolls on the internet. There are a lot of people who I don't want to say just hide behind a screen name because people put their pictures up, but people are a whole lot more cowardly online, even with a picture online, than they would be in person. The vast majority of people are civil, engaging, good conversationalists, you name it. Those people just don't right, they don't flame you online. Those people have more important stuff to do than to get online and be jerks about stuff. So anyway, I think that when you realize that Twitter and even YouTube, but YouTube, you could see the face here. So it's a little bit different. I think it's a little bit more, a little healthier. When you realize that the in-person element is something that a lot of the internet takes away, when you refocus on the in-person element, I think you get a lot healthier discussion. All right, we're going to play a video here. I just need to open it up. This was John Lynch talking on a podcast, and this came out this morning. This is Lynch about the discovery of Brock Purdy. Who gets credit? Well, John Lynch has some good answers for us. If I could find this. I'm struggling, guys. I really am. I'm trying to get this video up. And here, I'm going to have to just type it in. I need to clean out my computer is what I have to do. Because I have like 100 things that I scroll through, and usually it pops up at the top. But sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, well, then you're sitting here scrolling for a lot longer than you want to. Got it. Here we go. Ready for John Lynch. John Lynch could have made a lot more money if he would have just bailed to Amazon to be a TV commentator a couple of years. And he didn't because he wants to compete. He was saying that at the end. But it really interesting just to hear how important Brian Greasy was to the discovery of Trey Lance. And then obviously you go and you could talk about Steve Slowick, who was the area scout who dealt with Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell, who helped turn that program around. And Campbell credited Brock Purdy for turning the program around as being somebody who was obsessed with winning. And I think Brian Greasy noticed that through the Zoom meetings with Brock Purdy. He's a machine. Kyle Shanahan wants a robot at some level. Well, a machine, a robot, programmed to win, obsessed with winning is a quarterback who he'll really like. Now, as far as Lynch goes, it's just really funny because, people irrationally, these are irrational, emotional people calling for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's job, or even to say that they're on the clock or something, or the most ridiculous takes are, oh, Jed York told them something. It's like, guys, I talked to Jed York. I know Jed York. I know what he thinks of this whole situation. He's processed the whole Trey Lance situation long ago. You're the 20 clicks, the 20 likes you might get, or the 200 views you might get on YouTube because you go up and say, oh, Jed York said something to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan before their press conference. It's all cute. But it's not true. It really looks like clownery to be 100% honest. It's like, okay, yeah. You go, man. You've got your sources here. I mean, you talk about somebody like John Lynch. He's doing this job, even though he could have been working for Amazon for, I don't even know. I think it was $15 million per year. So for 3x the pay, he's not on any kind of hot seat, nor should he be on a hot seat given the track record. He's here competing. I think Kyle Shanahan is here competing. And the 49ers are in a lot better place than they were before these two guys took over. It's to me, it is absolutely preposterous that you have some of these takes floating around that are just not based in any truth whatsoever, when the actual truth is staring you out in the face. And the actual truth is the 49ers are playing really damn good football with a really good roster in a chaotic situation where nobody is ever perfect. I mean, if every single one of these people who is irrationally demanding perfection from Lynch and Shanahan were judged by the same standard in whatever the hell their day job is, they probably wouldn't have day jobs. Just the way that it is. So I just wish that people would look at football in realistic, real life terms a little bit more, because otherwise we can't have smart discussions. And it's not fun when we can't have smart discussions. It gets maddening. It gets toxic is what, is what the issue is. My thoughts on the kicker situation. I don't think the 49ers should panic right now. They need to evaluate Moody and Gonzalez and see if they'll be available for week 1 or shortly thereafter. And if they are available for 1 or shortly thereafter, well, then if they aren't available for 1 or shortly thereafter, then you might think of getting a practice squad kicker, or if it's going to be longer, maybe a kicker who can actually sign a full-time contract with the 49ers. But I don't think that you knee jerk and go to Robbie Gould. You have to stay convicted with the direction that you're going in. There is no data right now to suggest that Jake Moody is going to completely flame out. Like, yes, you have a couple missed kicks and a little shakiness at the start of preseason, but you also have an awesome training camp and you have his college tape. And I mean, there's so many reasons that the 49ers did this move for. Robbie Gould only made 63% of his kicks from 40 to 47 yards last year. He's a year older now. Robbie Gould wasn't good at kickoffs. Robbie Gould was starting to break down with some of those injuries a little too frequently. I get it. Moody has strained his quad once here, but you decided for the youth movement. You decided to use a 3rd-round pick on the best kicking prospect in a while, if you're the 49ers, to solve some of those issues for the long term with cap sustainability. And you throw away that entire effort if you just go back and you sign Robbie Gould. And I don't even think Robbie Gould would want to be signed as a rental for the time being. He would just be a fill-in for Jake Moody. I'm not sure that would be good for Robbie Gould. I don't think that would be agreeable for Robbie Gould. So I think that we're going to find out more about Gonzalez and Moody, and the 49ers are going to act accordingly based on what they learn on that front. Some people think that Moody will be great. Armstead is a really good run stopper, yes. How different would the 49ers be if Lance was never picked? Well, it depends on who they would have picked instead. They could have messed up the picks instead. So you never know. A lot of what ifs, which is why you should always draft the draft on why you should always grade the draft on the aggregate, right? The aggregate is how everything needs to be looked at. You have to say, okay, hey, here, the 49ers have amassed this much of talent, X amount of talent out of these 20 draft picks. Some worked out, some didn't, but this is how talented the football team is on a whole. If you start zooming in on 1 or 2 in a league where the draft has been proven to be a crapshoot time and time and time again, you're going to find reasons to put coaches in the Hall of Fame that shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, and you're going to find reasons to fire coaches who shouldn't be fired if you don't have a big picture view. You have to have a big picture view of this kind of stuff. And generally, owners are not going to be looking at individual draft picks when they're deciding if a coach is doing a good job or not. The good owners are going to look at the win-loss record. If a coach is performing, great, keep him. If he's not, okay, why is he not performing? Let's look at why. Oh, he's messing up the draft too many times. He doesn't have enough talent. All right, maybe I need to hire a GM to take over his personnel duties. Oh, is it play calling, people management? Okay, fire the guy. You do that if the team is losing. You don't do that if the team is winning. Yeah, and they might not have taken Parsons. Micah Parsons would have been probably one of the players available, right? But we just don't know. So dealing in hypotheticals just seems like a big waste of time to me. All right, guys, I've answered a lot of questions. It's been a very good time. Why don't you all go here and subscribe to this? How Trey Lance and Nick Bosa impact the 49ers' focus on salary cap sustainability. I talked about a lot here. And we got one more comment here. Firing Kyle and Lynch would lead the 49ers roster to getting picked apart and the favorite expensive players getting traded. Appreciate what you have now. Yes. Live in the now. Anyway, this piece is up on the screen. It's on The Athletic. I talked about it today. The big 49ers motivation for drafting Trey Lance, because this is the kind of stuff that we should be talking about right now. We should be intelligent about our analysis of what went wrong in the whole Trey Lance situation and why the 49ers were motivated to draft him in the first place. And the big reason was they wanted a quarterback on a rookie deal. They calculated that after the 2021 season, they couldn't afford a big money quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo and his $27 million anymore. They needed to move on to something like this to afford stuff. And that was Trey Lance at $8.5 million. Lance, obviously, as they tried to thread a tiny needle, didn't work out. But they got lucky, and they also did a good job with their scouting department to get Brock Purdy at $889,000. Because they have the quarterback on the rookie deal, they can re-sign a lot of these star players. Obviously, the next one is Nick Bosa. Cap number will get smaller in 2023, so the 49ers are incentivized to get this done, but it's going to get really crowded in 2024. In fact, these are the 49ers liabilities already on the books in 2024. They're already over the cap, so they're going to have to find a way to start cutting some of their expenditures. That's the graph. This is the 49ers salary cap situation. I have that all up there. Anyway, go check that out, because this is a big piece that you should be reading ahead of the 53-man roster cut down. I try to put everything into perspective for you. And then you could check this one out as well. This is the 53-man roster projection, which is obviously significant. Now, 1 p.m. Tuesday, teams have to cut those rosters by then, Pacific time. So let's all tune in. Stay tuned in. It's been fun. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Sub to the channel. Hit that alert button, and we'll talk to you all very soon. Everybody take care.